Samsung Galaxy S7 Review, Specs and Hardware Performance. As usual, Samsung has produced two processor variants for the Galaxy S7, but the one we have for our review is the model available in the UK and Europe, SMG 930F, equipped with the firm's own Exynos 8890 SoC. This is a 64-bit octa-core chipset with a 2.3 GHz clock speed, a Mali T880 GPU, and 4 GB RAM. Performance in the high-end Android space seems to have more or less leveled out across the board, not that this is a bad thing, and in no small part this is probably due to the fact that most of them are running Qualcomm's latest Snapdragon 820 chip. Having spent a bit of time with a few other high-end 2016 Android phones using the setup, and others, such as the HTC 10, I can say that the Exynos 8890-based Galaxy S7 is definitely in a similar ballpark. In general operation, things are silky smooth for navigating Android and hopping between apps, and even when playing intensive 3D games this phone definitely packs a punch. I can't say I noticed any latency issues or lag whatsoever, even when trying to deliberately push the device out of its comfort zone, although it must be said the back panel did heat up a fair bit. Benchmarks tests do show that the Snapdragon 820 edition does ever so slightly outperform the Exynos hardware, in particular when it comes to graphics, but the main takeaway here is the difference between the two in most scenarios is a handful of frames per second, importantly not enough to be noticeable in actual real-world use. A quick glance at most benchmarking test results and databases online shows that the Galaxy S7 Exynos model is still one of the top-performing smartphones on the market, and I for one think this is reflected in actual operation. Nothing seems to shake this handset, it just waltzes through whatever you throw at it effortlessly. Both storage options are pretty ample, with the base model being 32 GB going up to a full 64 GB if you're splashing out. Certainly we can see the sense in the modern app and content market of ditching a 16 GB lower tier, but although the presence of 256 GB of microSD support is a welcome one, it's only really any good for multimedia, as Samsung hasn't implemented Android Marshmallow's native adaptive storage feature. In other words, it can't use cards for storing apps. While the flexibility is nice, we can't help but wonder why Samsung wouldn't either open up support for adaptive storage or introduce a 128 GB top-tier storage model above the 64 GB one. Without either option, some power users may be in for a tricky time, but most users shouldn't have too much of a problem. A quick comment on audio. I think it's fair to say that as long as no one but HTC is investing in precision-made and amplified front-facing stereo speakers, then nothing else will really top boom sound. But with that said, I was really quite impressed with the Galaxy S7's audio quality from its single base-mounted speaker. It has a nice range on it and decently high volume capabilities, and although as mentioned I have heard crisper audio quality elsewhere, this is pretty damn good. I couldn't discern any tinniness from the handset. Samsung Galaxy S7 Review, Battery Life. This is it. The big one. For many users these days, good battery life is the holy grail feature for smartphones, one that is so often elusive, and there's a simple reason why. The more flashy display tech and high-end processors that are crammed into a phone, the more juice it will glug. Happily, there seems to be more and more flagships coming out where the battery consumption has been carefully optimized. Most recent high-end Android devices and the last few iPhones have all impressed us with their capable battery life, often spanning a couple of days now with at least moderate usage. In Android's case, this is no doubt due to leaps and bounds made by chip manufacturers and Google's own software optimizations in the last couple of Android builds, such as DOS. Samsung was making some headway in this regard with some innovative features like Ultra Power Saving Mode, to put the phone into a bare minimum. Calls only, black and white state, are now permanent fixtures and offer over a week if you're off exploring some wilderness, for example. However, with that said, although it was similar to its contemporary peers, the Galaxy S6's battery performance was one of the main letdowns of the handset and wasn't exactly amazing. Clearly someone was paying attention. The Galaxy S7 battery life is noticeably better than its predecessor and easily one of the best battery performers from the current crop of flagships. For a start, it's a bigger cell than the Galaxy S6 at 3,000 mAh instead of the old 2,550 mAh. But it also seems plenty of optimizations have been made, with the phone clocking up a 17 hours and 48-minute result in our continuous video playback test. To put that in perspective, the Galaxy S6 result was 13 hours, so you get nearly 5 hours more life out of the Galaxy S7, that's most of a working day. As you can see from the graph, it also outperforms the iPhone SE and Google Nexus 6P, both impressive juicers already. From my time with the phone I can say this is reflected in the hands-on, real-world performance. With low-key operation you will probably be prompted once every few days or so with a low battery warning, which really is a refreshing change. With moderate use you're looking at a breezy day and a half at least. Even the most voracious power users should get at least a full day out of this phone, if not more, and when we say a full day we mean from when you wake up to bedtime, not just when you get to the front door. The only handset we've seen outclass the Galaxy S7 so far is the Huawei Mate 8, but that thing is mostly battery anyway, and although it's a nice phone it doesn't have all the shiny bells and whistles this device does. However, one important thing to note is that the Galaxy S7's metal and glass sealed body design doesn't allow for a removable battery cell in the old Samsung style. While this isn't particularly unusual in the current market, there are now manufacturers offering premium design with this functionality, most notably LG with the LG G5. Is this a big deal? It's debatable. Old schoolers understandably miss being able to remove the battery because it gives you more flexibility. You can carry a spare, or if the battery develops a fault, as they sometimes do, you can easily replace it rather than the troublesome and sometimes costly process of having it fixed by a professional. The other argument is that battery deterioration is inevitable in every electronic device, so being able to replace it seems like a good idea. However, typically this isn't likely to occur until the phone is at least a few years old, by which time many people's contracts will be offering them an updated model anyway. The counter to that is if you're buying SIM-free and want your phone to last longer than a couple of years, but this all comes down to personal taste and what you're prepared to accept from your purchase.